we have for our keynote speaker, outstanding individual, happens to be a friend of mine as well. This is Zach Tudor, who now has risen to the lofty heights of being the Associate Lab Director for Idaho National Labs, National and Homeland Security Directorate. I knew Zach when he was just a guy. I knew Zach when he was a program manager at SRI, and we were both involved in committee work on cybersecurity. And a lot of things impressed me about Zach then, his down-to-earth sort of approach to things. He had been a submariner, and so that gave to a lot of interesting perspectives and stories there. A fun guy to be around, but really, really, really knowledgeable about security in operational technologies space. And that's why Idaho National Labs snagged him, make him leader there. And so I'm delighted to see him there and to be working with him and his people at Idaho National Labs. So the kind of things that we should include in introductions, he has an MS in Information Systems from George Mason University, and he has a CISSP and so on. So not only is he very knowledgeable, but he has the credentials behind it, and now is in a very interesting position to see what's going on, not only at Idaho National Labs, but throughout the National Lab system with respect to security in general, but data now and its application in security, particularly at Idaho National Labs. So that's the keynote that he will be giving, data analytics for infrastructure protection. I see him there grinning despite the introduction that I gave him. At this point, I will say, Zach, we're delighted that you're here, and pass the baton off to you.
All right, thanks very much. Yeah, some of those credentials show that, I used to have a real job at some point in my life, but now I'm a lofty manager, but I get to take credit for the great work that lots of other people do. And the other, one thing that I know David knows from other conferences and meetings, I thought he would mention my love of bacon. I'm a well-known bacon aficionado, bacon, chocolate bacon, candied bacon, any kind of bacon. So, and we make sure we have those at the meeting. So that's just one of the little things, but really, looking forward to this. Thanks very much for that kind introduction. I will see if I figure out how to share that screen. It's always the first, let's see, I don't want to scare you, so I want to share the application. Yes, it might work. Hopefully, give me a thumbs up if you're seeing my slides that start with data analytics. Excellent. Okay, the first hurdle has been succumbed. So this data analytics and national security, or as I was going to call it, data-driven technologies to secure a data-driven society. So as David mentioned, here at Idaho National Lab, we focus on protecting critical infrastructure. I'll talk just a little bit about the lab, and then I'll go into some of the solutions that we have helped develop for national security and international security to take it even farther. And so for those that don't know, there are 17 Department of Energy national labs nationwide. Basically, three types. The weapons labs that are very well known with tremendous capabilities, Sandias, Lawrence Livermore, Los Alamos, they are well known for their capabilities, and they are run through the office of the NSA, the National Nuclear Security Administration. Next, we have the very many laboratories that come through the Department of Energy's Office of Science, and those include, for our discussion, mostly Pacific Northwest National Lab, Argonne National Lab, Oak Ridge. They are some of the primary laboratories that you may work with if you're working in the national security space. And now they are also known, as INL is, as a multi-program lab. So we not only do our primary mission, but we also work in national security and clean energy and others. And then finally, you have the three energy laboratories. Idaho National Lab is the nation's nuclear energy laboratory. And you have the National Renewable Energy Laboratory in Golden, Colorado, and they do exactly what it says. They focus on renewable energy. And the National Energy Technology Lab, both in West Virginia and in Pennsylvania, they focus on technologies around fossil energy, but also on ways to transition into the kind of new energy economy. Here at INL, we focus on 5 things. Obviously, nuclear science and technology, and we have 3 major directorates for that. Our advanced test reactor is one of the most advanced reactors in the world. It has been used to develop the fuels for the Navy nuclear propulsion program, so the fuels for the Nautilus and others, fuels for the initial commercial use of nuclear energy, and for other use by industry and other national laboratories. And then the materials and fuel complex has the largest inert set of glove boxes for fuel fabrication, post-irradiation examination, and many other types of technologies. We supplied space nuclear power. So the last Mars mission that went up was powered by different technologies that we developed here. As I mentioned, we also are a multi-program lab, so our nuclear mission. We also work heavily in energy and environment. We have advanced capabilities for studying battery technologies, clean energy, and advanced manufacturing. And then obviously my national Homeland Security science and technology, where we focus on critical infrastructure protection, wireless security, new spectrum technologies, nuclear nonproliferation, and other national defense systems. So we are also out here in the beautiful Rocky Mountains. And so I like to show this slide first before I go forward and show you what some of the things are that are out there. So we have a lot of specialized infrastructure here at the lab, and almost every national laboratory kind of prides itself on the specialized infrastructure that they have, whether it's scientific instruments or others. Here, one of the big things about Idaho National Laboratory is our scale, and testing at scale is one of the big things. So whether it's our wireless security range, the Naval Reactors Facility that they point out to, our unmanned aerial vehicle systems, our nuclear fuels test bed, the ability to explode up to 20,000 pounds of TNT for materials research at our explosives range, the specific manufacturing capability where we make the Abrams tank. Now, I do want to talk about how important artificial intelligence, data-driven technologies are to us at the Idaho National Lab. We've been having an annual innovation week here at INL for the last couple of years. What's interesting, I didn't have pictures of my own innovation week. I looked it up on the web and found so many others that do a similar type of activities to get people together to share ideas and to learn new technologies. At SRI, as David mentioned, I had worked there for many years. The process of innovation was ingrained in all of us. And so we had a lot of very interesting guest speakers, including Dmitry Kuznetsov, who was the former director of the AI Technology Office at the Department of Energy, and Doug Maughan, who was the director of the Cybersecurity Division at DHS Science and Technology, all talking about the different approaches that we needed to take for understanding the different requirements that we had for the various types of AI. And you can stay on that slide for now. And also making sure that we help understand and help our stakeholders understand the kind of continuum that there is in artificial intelligence or machine learning, because so many people have their own definition of what that means. So whether we start at the beginning of the spectrum at automation, through autonomy, the different machine learning capabilities and techniques that we use, a limited AI or true AI. Well, some people think you say artificial intelligence and there are sentient robots coming down the street taking all of our jobs and taking away a lot of the things that we care about, our freedom, et cetera. And we are nowhere near that yet, as we have all seen in various fails of AI. I was looking at one in a meme yesterday. A guy was watching TV and an image recognition software centered on his knee and said 70% likelihood that this was a dog because he had a little bit of hair on his leg there. And so we realized that the limited AI, some of the different specialized functions that we have are getting better, but true artificial intelligence is still quite a ways off. So next, I want to highlight some of the areas that we have been working in for national security to discuss the technology that we've developed and some of the work that we've done with different partners to understand the domains that we're in, and then provide machine learning, artificial intelligence, data science-based technologies to do that. So the first one we'll talk about is something that has just recently been demonstrated for the Department of Energy and with partners, and that's some of our enhancements for protective relays. For those that don't know a lot about the electric grid, a protective relay, does just that. It keeps different transients from impacting the grid, whether it's by a fiber-seeking backhoe or a squirrel or a tree limb going down on a branch. It helps protect certain segments of the grid and helps those transients from impacting the larger grid as a whole. And we've seen over the last year or two some of the different examples of, say, cascading failures. And protective relays are those things that are meant to prevent those cascading failures. So, of course, those are obviously very, great targets for some of our adversaries, right? So, number one, we want to protect the grid from natural events, but cyber threats try to mimic those cyber threats. So we wanted to develop something that could be rapidly deployable, and not only for the electric grid as it is, but as you can see in the upper right picture, we also had a pop-up wind turbine. We had solar panels, and we had feeds in from our electric grid, all showing that an integrated energy system through use of renewables could be protected by these two technologies: the constrained cyber communication device and the master state estimator. As David knows, and we've been working in this area, state estimation across the grid has been something that's been worked on for the last 15 years. For the grid as a whole, but also for some of the different, say, microgrids, or even, macro grids, citywide type things, to be able to estimate the real-time status, but then coordinate that through algorithms using that state estimation capability, and ensuring that we understand when transients, come through, that we can identify them and then try to prevent them. Let's try the next slide. Hey, Jay, can we do the next slide?
I'm seeing slide 6 here.
Okay,
No one else is?
Hopefully it says threat intelligence visualization.
That's correct.
All right, so working with Southern California Edison, and this was a follow-on from another project I'll talk about later, we wanted to develop a method for grid operators to be able to see some of the cyber threats that they were being presented with. If you've ever sat in front of a screen in a security operations center, a lot of people take great pride in the ability to watch text scrolling in rapid fashions, or looking at some of the other types of visualization machines. But using machine learning, the structured threat intelligence graph is able to provide a new type of visual information to operators on threats, on different data that's coming in. I'm talking about transients and others. And so we are able to provide this these data through the structured threat intelligence information expression, or STIX, which is becoming more and more of a standard, and will also be seen later on as we talk about how machines can talk to machines in this same fashion. So making things better for the operator is one of the key goals of this visualization. We have taken the STIG and open sourced it, so the tools are on INL's GitHub. The funding through this the California Energy Systems for the 21st Century. We worked with Los Alamos National Lab and others, and all of the California utilities to, I think that was Lawrence Livermore National Lab, I better give the right people credit, to develop this suite of tools to help grid operators better understand the threats, the attacks and consequences. And these tools were able to be deployed out to several of the different utilities. Next slide, Jay. All right, so I talked about some of the different visualization tools and how we were able to allow operators to work. But the automated, and that should be threat response, and I did it twice, so that's good, at least I'm consistent. I needed an AI to come and review all of this here. but we needed a method for grid operators to respond to novel attacks, and not just in their own environments, but to be able to understand those attacks and at machine speed have the grids and the systems themselves communicate those novel threats in machine readable, language that can allow them to set their security postures in advance of the next threat. So it streamlines the way we gather intelligence. One of the key things for resilient, reducing the mean time to discovery and recovery. We've seen so many examples in the news in the last several years of attacks that have been resident inside the technology companies or infrastructures for months and sometimes years. And so that reducing the time to discovery is critical. Resiliency is a key, as I just said. Discovery, recovery, mitigation are all just critical. Now that we've understood that we can no longer make perfectly secure systems as we tried to in, say, the first 20 or 30 years of our cybersecurity work. So it lowers the risk posture and definitely prevents attackers from reusing attacks because the machines are now improved in their protections based on the signatures that early victims may be able to provide. So next slide, please. And Jay or David, if there's anything there in the chat, I'm obviously not checking those too much. Next is some of the anomaly detection for industrial control systems. So many of us have been working in this area for quite a long time, and so we have improved some of those methodologies. A lot of anomaly detection has been used in the IT systems. We've now been developing new sensors for industrial control systems. One thing before we even talk about one thing of note is that an anomaly is an anomaly. And as we initially started developing anomaly detection for industrial control, and even in some cases for IT systems, we were noticing that we were also seeing misconfigurations, failed boards, maybe capacitor broke, and there's a broadcast message that's being sent out, looks like an attack. And so a lot of the work that we were doing in anomaly detection has been transported for use in maintenance and preventative maintenance technology. So rather than try and do your maintenance at a 48-month or something periodicity because there's a mean time to failure, if you can use some of this type of anomaly detection to understand when a component is about to fail, then you can extend the life of some very expensive components. But anyway, in this area, developing that AI breakthrough so that we can prevent those devastating attacks. So AICS is one of several technologies that are being integrated, along with, I believe, the Weasel board from Sandia and another technology from P&L to help identify that anomalous network traffic alert, and then help continuously deploy some honeypots, some virtual hosts to distract the target. So it combines several different types of technologies that we've been working on over the past 20 years. Next slide, please. All right. And of course, we've heard a lot about modernizing the grid in a variety of areas. I know one thing that came up again just last week with us was a bill that was proposed and I believe even passed Senator Risch and Senator King to improve the use of analog technologies in the smart grid. And a lot of detractors were saying that we were trying to make the smart grid dumb again. But I think we were of the impression that it was really talking more about using the right technology, for the right purpose at the right time. So in introducing, more general purpose machines in an attack path just provides, greater, chances for attack. Whereas an analog device, whether it's a data diode or just simply, better separation, was seen as the way to go. So the Grid Modernization Laboratory Consortium was one of the areas that the Office of Electricity came working with several of the key labs to work with collaboration with the labs, academia, private industry to make the next leap forward in modernizing the grid, while we were also bringing smart grids, renewables, and others to bear. So two of the technologies that were developed, the deep learning malware, the better way to reverse engineer malware at scale, which is one of the major programs, because analysts are scarce, especially those that have the capability to really understand key reverse engineering tools, while they also understand grid mechanics and grid physics and what the malware might accomplish. So being able to use the deep learning tools can help the analysts focus their efforts on the most damaging types of attacks. And then for firmware command and control, creating those firmware baselines, so then we can see when changes might happen and be able to detect and report them. Next slide. Okay. All right. And so some of the work that we've been doing with the Department of Homeland Security, I love talking about this tool, the All Hazards Analysis tool, because obviously it's called AHA. But we wanted to help emergency planners be able to respond better to all of the interdependencies in critical infrastructure. Once again, David and I have been talking this for a while. The meatball chart that you see on the right, it is an advancement over the one that Pierenboom, Rinaldi, and Kelly did almost 20 years ago now, when they did the breakthrough work to talk about a lot of the interdependencies. But obviously it's so much data, so much information for humans to understand and coordinate. So with the use of artificial intelligence and with a lot of new data, and that's something we can talk about later. What haven't we been talking about here? Collecting data, cleaning the data, and being able to use it to make maps that can coordinate connected infrastructures, identify when things like tropical storms, hurricanes, and others may damage infrastructure. What are the best ways to coordinate the restoration efforts to be able to bring critical services back online much faster? So whether it's the All Hazards Analysis tool itself or the imagery and dependency profiles, once again, the data that's been collected from the regional assessments that INL and others have done for the last 18 to 20 years have now been able to be cataloged and cleaned and used for a lot of these dependency profiles. Next slide, please. Similarly, we worked with DHS and the National Risk Management Center at the beginning of the pandemic to develop a tool that's called the Commercial Routing Assistance to help use geospatial infrastructure analysis, Bing Maps, working with Esri, the mapping company, to be able to help deploy a mapping tool to help commercial truckers navigate through the various zones where there might be high incidence of COVID, greater need, maybe some areas that were shut down or required quarantines. And so, I don't want to belittle the fact that we were using toilet paper evidently here in the U.S. at record rates, but there were other critical tools that were needed, across the nation. And whether there were route restrictions, like curfews, rest area closures, things that truckers needed to know, the data that was available and then coordinated through the Department of Homeland Security, put into the Commercial Routing Assistance tool to be able to, get critical supplies across country when needed. One great thing about this is we've been following on with some of the other, national missions. So maybe this can help us understand better ways to, say, ship chemicals from east to west or north to south, while avoiding maybe, bridge outages or congestion or traffic accidents, or disturbances. And so, this type of data analytic capabilities, will provide new ways to protect the citizens in those areas. All right, so my last slide. I just want to talk about some of the things that we haven't discussed, or that I haven't discussed right here, that we do at the lab that are pertinent for all of us. So, AI is not just for, national security missions, homeland security missions. We also use it in materials discovery. So with our modeling and simulation capabilities, with our machine learning capabilities to understand the different properties of materials following certain limited types of experiments, you can cut your experimentation time down and get to some testable materials in a much faster time. Same thing, INL provides medical isotopes and also isotopes for detection for different devices for national security around the nation. Now, being able to use machine learning to understand some of the nature of some of the isotopes, the way to develop them, way to use our current tools, and maybe to develop new tools to develop these isotopes. One thing that INL has also been asked to do, and we understood that because of our nature as that critical infrastructure protection lab mission that we have, is what are the threats to our critical infrastructure from the misuse of artificial intelligence. And so we are looking at things like adversarial AI, different types of supply chain attacks, data attacks that might make some of the machine learning, autonomous systems, and others turn against us or not be able to deliver the results that we need in the time that we need. We are just now structuring our research portfolio to understand how we will investigate these types of data-driven attacks against our data-driven infrastructure. And particularly supply chain, it's one of those buzzwords. If you've been playing bingo, I don't think I've used all the buzzwords, and that was intentionally, but obviously supply chain for our artificial intelligence for our data is critical for us to be able to develop these tools and use them effectively. I was when Dmitry Kuznetsov was talking, we were saying that artificial intelligence and artificial intelligence expertise is in short supply, just like cyber expertise. And I said, oh gee, now we're going to be competing for the same types of students through high school and college that we want to be cybersecurity professionals who will now have another very interesting and viable option, and that is to become artificial intelligence, data scientists, machine learning specialists. So we'll have to make our cybersecurity profession even more exciting for those types of folks. And with that, Jay, I'm going to just take a spot to look in the chat. You can stop sharing, I would say. Oh, good. Someone advertised something on Twitter. I love when that happens. Yeah, someone else evidently types as well as I do. So I see that I just have a few minutes left, but if there are questions about what we do at the lab, how we work, with academia, David Nickel is the key. He's one of the grand poobahs. That's why, when he calls and invites you to speak, you definitely say yes. Because he definitely brings great sets of minds together to solve problems in our sphere.
Thanks, Zach. It might be the case that people who would like to ask a question can just unmute and turn their camera on and ask the question, or they can type into the chat.
Yeah, or depending on where they are, they might go to lunch.
They might indeed.
All right. Well, I see that I have stumped people, and that is good. And I do want to mention that and as David knows, we team with our partners in academia on a regular basis. We just installed a new top 50 in the world supercomputer, and I like to talk that as I said that we're now probably top 60 in the world. Because it advances so quickly. But unlike some of the really big iron machines at Pacific Northwest Lab or at Oak Ridge, we're going to use ours primarily for high fidelity modeling of materials of our nuclear fuels, et cetera, but also for some of these things that we mentioned in the Homeland Security environment as well. So some of the tools that do interdependency analysis, as we're getting more and more data, we obviously need more and more computing power to be able to understand the intricacies of those interdependencies. Trying to model the grid has been kind of the holy grail. We have a big paper model. We think we know where things are connected. But understanding how transients flow, how attacks may propagate, how we may mitigate that, is really very important. The microgridding that has been studied in the last few years and now really being deployed in several areas across the U.S. has shown a lot of promise. But I always say that at some point you need the full grid to be able to sustain itself. And if we provide enough microgrids, we may not be able to come back together again at some point. So I think some people are also understanding it's how do we get everyone synchronized when they've all broken apart into microgrids to protect themselves from some event. How do we synchronize? What do we use when there's no big grid to jump back onto? How do microgrids start to form again themselves? So.
Oh, thanks, Zach. I guess I did have a question, but I think I'm going to hold that because it probably requires a longer answer than we got. So maybe you can be relieved at that. So thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, I appreciate it, and I'll jump on and off as much as I can through the workshop. And good luck to all of you. And thanks for having me.
All right, thanks a lot.